This question is from Russell, who says, please do a series on forgiveness. I think this is a subject that lots of Christians get wrong, including myself. Okay, so the subject of forgiveness isn't one that I feel compelled to get into right now in a very deep way. I just don't have that feeling of fire inside, like I've got to talk about this when I think about this subject. At the moment, I may do at some point in the future. But in the meantime, although I won't do a whole series on it, I'm very happy to do a video on it as part of this Answers run. And whenever this topic comes up, I always think of a teaching that Timothy Keller gave a while back. Timothy Keller, unfortunately, died quite recently, but in his book, The Reason for God, which I've got right here, I think he makes a point which is really the key to understanding this whole topic. So I'll just read a passage from this book to get us started on this video. He says, imagine that someone borrows your car, and as he backs it out of the driveway, he strikes a gate, knocking it down along with part of a wall. Your property insurance doesn't cover the gate and garden wall, so what can you do? There are essentially two options. The first is to demand that he pays for the damages, and the second is to pay for them yourself. There may also be a middle-of-the-road solution in which you both share the cost of the payment, but notice that in every option, the cost of the damage must be borne by someone. Either you or he absorbs the cost for the deed, but the debt does not somehow vanish into thin air. So when you've been wronged, there's often an economic debt which is created, and either you or the person who did the deed has got to absorb the cost of that debt. They've got to pay for it. But as well as an economic debt, there's also an interpersonal debt which is created. There's a social debt. There's a debt of pain and suffering, if you will. So has someone ever done something that's hurt you and then they said, oh no, I'm so sorry, I will make this up to you. Now, what does that mean? I will make it up to you. Well, it means I have wronged you in some way that has put me in your debt. So I now need to do something to clear that debt. How can I clear it? How can I make this up to you? How can I make sure that we're now back on a level again, if that makes sense? When someone gets involved in criminal activity, they create these debts all over society. Stealing, hurting, defrauding, they're running up a debt against society. So when they're caught, they get put in jail so they can what? So they can pay their debt to society. That's the phraseology that we use. Because they've sinned against society, they've run up a debt against that society, and now they've got to pay it off. Sometimes they can pay it with just a fine, just a monetary payment, but for bigger debts, we make them pay by forfeiting years of their lives. We put them in prison. And then once they've paid with time in jail, we then say that they've paid their debt to society. So the key point I'm trying to make here is that sin creates debt. Wrongdoing creates debt, interpersonal and social debt. That's the central concept that we've got to grasp here. That is the key of this whole subject. And once that debt has been created, it's got to be paid for somehow by someone. Now, in daily life, we're creating these interpersonal debts against one another all the time. We're wronging one another all the time. Not in a criminal sense, of course, or at least I hope not. But maybe you hurt someone's feelings because you forgot their birthday. Maybe you turned up late to an appointment, you wasted someone's time and it caused them frustration. Maybe you say you'll do something, but you don't, so you cause them disappointment. Maybe you tell a lie, maybe you hurt their feelings. Maybe you don't thank someone so they feel unimportant or taken for granted. And when those things happen to us, again, because this debt is now being created, we can often feel perfectly justified in thinking, well, they need to pay for that. I'm gonna make them pay for what they did. Since they disappointed me, I am now justified in disappointing them in equal measure. That will settle the score. That will make us even again. I'm going to get even with them. If they feel they can waste my time, I'm now justified in wasting theirs. If they make me feel unimportant, I'm justified in making them feel unimportant. If they've hurt me, I'm now justified in hurting them. I will get my own back. What they've taken from me, I'm now justified in taking it back. I will even the score. Let's see how they like it when the same thing happens to them. In the same measure they have caused me pain, I am now perfectly justified in causing them an equal amount of pain. So what's happening is when we're hurt, we often have this instinct for retaliation and revenge. Whenever we feel hurt, we can feel there's a just and right compensation to be had if we can make them feel an equal amount of pain as well. But of course, if we do retaliate like that, the other person may now feel that they're now owed something, so they retaliate back on you. And now you feel wronged again, so now you feel entitled to lash back out at them. And so the problem you see is now beginning to escalate. It's expanding, it's being compounded. And this is how cycles of retaliation and revenge really get started, this kind of tit for tat thing. And all of a sudden you can be in this feud that can last for years, where both sides feel that they're the one who is wronged and the other person is the one who needs to make it up. They're the one who needs to apologize. They're the one who needs to be putting things right. They're the one who needs to make it up to me. I'm the one who is wronged. And then what happens is, as we begin to stew on all of these feuds, a bitterness can start to spread within our own hearts. All of these feelings of resentment and hatred and aggression and ill will start frothing around and bubbling up inside us. You can find yourself fantasizing about getting even and replaying conversations in your head and thinking, I wish I'd said that because that would really have hurt them. And you start wishing bad things on your enemy, and it would serve them right. If that bad thing happened, they would deserve it. And you can find yourself becoming colder and harder and becoming self-absorbed and self-pitying as you sink into your victimhood. And so what is happening is a bitterness is starting to consume your own heart. It's spreading through your own soul. And this is the problem, that when we seek to take revenge, the evil expands in society, yes, but most tragically of all, it begins to expand within us. Our hearts become filled with rage and discontent, and we become consumed by bitterness. Now, this then is where forgiveness becomes absolutely necessary, not just to stop the spread of evil in society, which is a big problem, but to stop the spread of evil in our own hearts as well. So, let me be clear about what forgiveness actually means and what forgiveness actually is. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending the thing didn't happen or it didn't hurt. Forgiveness is saying, you wronged me, it happened, it hurt, it's created a debt between us, but instead of me making you pay for it, I choose to absorb the cost myself. I will absorb the pain myself. I won't hold it against you. I won't try to get even. I won't try to make you pay for it. I release you into freedom. You are now free. That's essentially what forgiveness is. It's an absorption of the pain. Now, as Timothy Keller notes, to do this is absolutely agonizing. He says, to refrain from lashing out at someone when you want to do it with all your being is agony. It is a form of suffering. You not only suffer the original loss of happiness, reputation, and opportunity, but now you forgo the consolation of inflicting the same on them. You're absorbing the debt, taking the cost of it completely on yourself instead of taking it out on the other person. It hurts terribly. Many people would say it feels like a kind of death. It seems so unfair sometimes that when someone has caused you so much pain, instead of getting to inflict it back out on them again, which you feel perfectly entitled to do, instead you just absorb it. You just absorb the pain. It seems so unfair sometimes, and yet that essentially is what forgiveness is. It's absorbing the pain instead of pushing it back out onto the world and onto your enemy. Now, why would anyone do that? Well, because it stops the expansion of evil in the world, but also it stops the expansion of evil in our own hearts. Lewis Smead says, to forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you. When you hold on to anger and bitterness and you stew on things, you're actually damaging yourself, and you're letting that person, that event dictate and ruin the course of your entire life. You're letting that corrupt your own character and spread darkness within your own heart. Timothy Keller again says, I remember once counseling a 16-year-old girl about the anger she felt towards her father. We weren't getting anywhere until I said to her, your father has defeated you as long as you hate him. You will stay trapped in your anger unless you forgive him thoroughly from the heart and begin to love him. Something thawed in her when she realized that. She went through the suffering of costly forgiveness, which at first always feels far worse than bitterness, into eventual freedom. Forgiveness must be granted before it can be felt, but it does come eventually. It leads to a new peace, a resurrection. It is the only way to stop the spread of evil. It's the only way to stop evil spreading in the world, in society, and it's the only way to stop evil spreading in your own heart, causing you to become colder and harder, more self-absorbed and self-pitying, letting it steal your joy and peace, and dictating and ruining the course of your life. The only way to stop all of that happening is to forgive and to absorb the debt, absorb the pain, and let go. Therefore, forgiveness is very much worth it. Now, you might say to yourself, though, but there should be some kind of justice. They shouldn't get away with it. They should pay somehow for what they did. And to that, the Bible says, look, don't worry about it. Let God take care of the justice side of things. The Bible says, dear friends, never take revenge. Leave that to the righteous anger of God. God has got this under control. God will judge them fairly. Don't you worry about it. You just give it to him, take it off your shoulders, give it to him, and don't let it dominate or ruin the course of your life. Don't let holding on to grievances and grudges corrupt your own character. So the message from this video then is, if you have any broken relationships and feelings of bitterness towards someone, now is the time to absorb the cost, absorb the pain, and forgive them and let them go. The debt which is being created against you, it may be very real, it may be very painful, nobody's denying that. You may feel perfectly entitled to your retribution, but the way of the Christian is to absorb the pain and forgive them and let go. Let go and let God, as they say. And as Jesus taught us, even love your enemies. You know, being from Scotland, there's a very small minority of people in this country who are still holding on to grudges against the English, which go back to events that happened about 800 years ago. And you see the bitterness consuming them even today, for things that happened 800 years ago. In the Middle East, we see parents teaching their children to continue feuds and to hold on to unforgiveness, and they're consumed with the bitterness and hatred which is being passed down from generation to generation. And there are other groups today demanding retributions for things and reparations for things that happened centuries and centuries ago. But at some point, you need to stop living in victimhood. You need to forgive and let go. There has to come a time when someone absorbs the pain, and there has to come a time when it's over and when you let it go. This is what Jesus taught us on the cross. Of course, one of the things he taught us on the cross. The Bible says, for everyone has sinned. We all fall short of God's glorious standard. What does that mean? Because we have all sinned, we have all created debts against God himself. Now, how did God handle those debts? Did he make us pay them? No, even though he was entitled to retribution, instead he went to the cross and he absorbed the debt for our sin in his own body. And he did that so we could be forgiven and set free. He absorbed all of that pain so we could be set free. And it's exactly because God has shown a willingness to do that for us that we should now be willing to do that for others. Ephesians says, forgive one another because God has forgiven you. C.S. Lewis wrote, to be a Christian means to forgive the inexcusable in others because God has forgiven the inexcusable in you. It's also worth reading the parable of the unforgiving debtor in Matthew 18 once you finish this video, because that too affirms the same principle. In the same way that Jesus has been willing to absorb the pain of sin to forgive us, we should be willing to absorb the pain of sin to forgive others. And that's a little bit of what it means to daily pick up our cross and to follow after him.